Okay, and this week's topic for Ramble Rouser is whatever is on this slip. Oh, that's a fun one. See if you can see this here. Hamilton. Okay, so I heard about Hamilton for the first time years ago. I have my sister and friends who had listened to the soundtrack and heard about it, and I heard about it, and I was like, okay, I'm not like huge into history stuff, especially when it concerns America, where it's like, oh, this history is like revised to make America look a lot better. A lot of times when it's taught in school and shit, but it's like, I'll give it a chance. And so I checked out the soundtrack, and it was really good. Like I got into it really quickly, um, and I had to remind myself while listening. It's like these were real people. These aren't just like characters I'm listening to, and it's not just like these fictional stories. I mean, they're exaggerated accounts, and obviously they're not 100% accurate. But these are like real events that took place, real people, real relationships, all of that jazz. And it's like I had to kind of remind myself of that while listening. Um, so I listened to the soundtrack many, many times, and I listened to the remix soundtrack, which was a bunch of celebrity singers and stuff. Like for Satisfied, it was Sia, Queen Latifah, and someone else. I think I want to say Miguel, but I'm not sure. Um, and then there was some other special stuff, like there was the Hamilton Polka by Weird Al Yankovic. And it's just, I saw various video clips, like I saw them perform at the Tonys, I saw them perform at the White House, and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, this is really cool. And it's like, I really like the history behind this, and it's getting a lot of people to actually look up the real history behind a lot of it. And while it does paint a lot in a more positive light than it should, there's also a lot of it that it does acknowledge the weak points of, especially with characters like Jefferson and, well, Hamilton himself. So I do appreciate that. It doesn't go completely as far as it honestly should, but it gets people to look stuff up and find out the truth themselves. So hey, there is that at least. Um, Now, just this year, Hamilton was released on Disney Plus as a movie. It was taken from three different recordings, I believe, of the stage performance. I believe there was two recordings that were done in front of the audience, and one that was done with no audience, but it was done just to get like certain close-up shots and everything. Um, and this was my first time seeing it outside of again a like few very isolated like clips here and there that were like, oh, maybe like 20 seconds long, and it made it so much better. Because the thing was, the music is great, the singing is great, the rapping is great, but I think what really sells it is the actors acting, their emotions, their expressions, and stuff like that. Just the way they move on the stage, the way the stage itself moves, literally and, well, figuratively. It helps sell each song and each scene and just every emotion so much better. And I'm not going to worry about spoilers here because it's historical accounts and stuff. So let me just say, probably the biggest example of that with emotion specifically, when Eliza is crying over her son's body, and she just loses it out of pure grief. That was that brought tears to me in a way that the song itself, that part, like, never could, like, because of seeing Philippa Sue's performance, seeing her physical performance in that moment, just it destroyed me. um Easily the star of the show, though, was definitely Daveed Diggs. Like, yeah, you could say, of course, Leslie Odom Jr. did amazing as Aaron Burr. Of course, um, uh, oh God, what is her name? The actress who plays Angelica. I can't remember her name at the moment. But she did amazing, of course, and yeah, Lynn, of course, was great as Alexander. Everyone was great, no question. You can name literally anyone in there, and it's like, yeah, they were great. But David Diggs, from his physical acting to his expressionism, just the way he at some points jerked around, like when he was laughing or just being a goofball, whether it was when he was playing Thomas Jefferson or Lafayette, he stole the show every time he was on stage. Like a lot of people say King George is the star, is the like the true star of the show because of just how charismatic he is, and he is, but he's nothing compared to David Diggs. And I think that the biggest thing is the physical acting. Jonathan Groff, while doing an amazing job, who, by the way, I only recently found out is the voice of Kristoff in Frozen, and that completely threw me for a loop. Um, but he does a great job, especially with the vocals. But most of the time he's on stage, he's standing still or walking in a very dignified fashion, which fits King George, obviously. But there's not much physical acting. He does a lot of mugging, he does a lot of good facial stuff, but there's not a lot of physical acting that really stands out with him, in my opinion. And David Diggs, it is just so dynamic with it that he just feels so much more alive, so much more impressionable in just the best ways. Um, but my favorite song is still, it always has been since I first heard the soundtrack, and it still is, especially after seeing it on the movie version. It's still Yorktown by far. The world turned upside down. It's just it's triumphant. It's badass. It's exciting and tense, and it has literally my favorite moment in the entire play in it, and that is Hercules Mulligan's verse. I am not even joking when I am saying that is my favorite moment in the entirety of Hamilton, just because of the way it's presented. Because they start building up to it, and it's building up. It's getting more and more intense, more exciting, and then Hamilton's like, "That's right, Hercules Mulligan," and then he bursts forth, and it's like this just really heavy, really strong, really intense verse that ends with, "I'm Hercules Mulligan, you knock me down, I get the fuck back up again," and it's like, holy shit, yes, I love this. It's like it sends chills down my spine every time I hear it, and especially seeing it. I don't know offhand the name of the actor who plays Hercules Mulligan, um, but he does such an amazing job. Um, in that scene especially, it gets to me every time. And that's not to say the other stuff in the film in the play aren't great. Like Satisfied, oh, that is so deeply emotional, so hard hitting. Helpless is just really, really delightfully beautiful. Um, and so much more. Burn, holy shit! I think everyone understands that. I don't even have to say anything else. Hell, even say no to this. Like that is done so much better seeing it visually. It just feels so much more real and in a way, well, not even in a way, just as it is wrong. It feels so much more wrong because of it, and it was very wrong, obviously. Um, but yeah, it's just like seeing it physically acted out is so much better. And obviously, seeing it live would have been better than seeing it as a movie, and I really would love to have seen it live. Obviously, with the original cast. But if I had to have seen it with another cast, that would be fine. I'm sure they're just as good. I've seen I think a couple short clips of a couple other casts doing it. Um, but yeah, it's like Even though it would have been better seeing it live, it still stood out in such an impressive way. And honestly, I'm not a huge theater fan. I mean, I like theater, I appreciate theater, I just don't indulge in it much. But it by far, Hamilton, I don't think could ever be beaten out as my favorite musical. Not only for the historical significance of it, even if it does take some liberties, but the pure entertainment value, the acting chops, and Lin Manuel Miranda's just godlike writing. It's just, it's practically perfection. It's as close as you probably could get. And granted, I haven't seen stuff like Wicked or whatnot or Heather's, so I don't know how those are. I've only heard like a couple songs from each, so it's hard to really judge. There might be other plays out there that I could think are even better. Like, I don't know, the Broadway adaptation of Rent. I've seen the movie on this channel, obviously, but I don't know like how good the Broadway adaptation is. Or then there's also that Dear Evan Hansen one, I think it's called. Um, there's a lot of different ones, and it's like I don't know exactly how they would all be, but I mean, if any of them would even have a chance of standing up to Hamilton, which I don't see how they could, but maybe if any of them even had a chance of that, then I'd be more than willing to check them out too. Hey, maybe one day we'll get a Wicked version on a Wicked movie version like we did with Hamilton. I know In the Heights is being made into a movie, but that's actually more of an actual theatrical movie, not just a stage recording. I'm excited for that nonetheless. So that's another Lin Manuel Miranda play, and Anthony Ramos is going to be in it. He was in Hamilton as well, so he was. Oh my gosh, what is his name? Lawrence, John Lawrence, and Philip Schuyler. He was both of them. A lot of the actors played multiple roles. um, but yeah. Either way, Hamilton is a fantastic play. If you haven't heard the soundtrack and you maybe want to check that out before seeing the movie version itself on Disney Plus, definitely check it out. It's on Spotify. I would highly suggest it. But if you have not had any experience with Hamilton, I would suggest seeing it as the movie version if you can't obviously see it live, which in this time obviously not. But yeah, I would definitely suggest seeing it visually because it makes it so much better. And honestly, I wish I could have seen it visually as my introduction to it. I wish I could have seen it visually blind. I would have been blown away even more. But tell me in the comments below what you think of Hamilton if you have heard/seen it. And thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Ramble Rouser. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See you all next time.